It's not often that a constitutional monarch speaks with such carefully calibrated tones and yet manages to deliver a political thunderclap across a continent. But that's precisely what happened in Ottawa yesterday when King Charles III addressed the Canadian Parliament, only the third such occasion in the nation's history.
Today, Canada faces another critical moment. Democracy, pluralism, the rule of law, self-determination, and freedom are values which Canadians hold dear, and ones which the government is determined to protect. The system of open global trade that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for Canadians for decades, is changing. Canada's relationships with partners are also changing.
In just 26 minutes, the King, head of state in both the United Kingdom and Canada, gave voice to the deepest anxieties of a nation facing not merely economic uncertainty, but something far more existential, the spectre of an annexation by America. And we must begin by noting the rarity of the event. Queen Elizabeth II opened Canada's Parliament in 1957 and again in 1977, and her son's decision to follow suit nearly half a century later was not so happenstance. Happenstance is a good word. If it was intentional, it was a strategic gesture of solidarity, and Prime Minister Mark Carney made it quite clear in the subtext, if not the text of the invitation. The backdrop, of course, is Donald Trump's unceasing provocation about the 51st state and tariffs, trade wars, and most astonishingly, his suggestion that Canada should become part of America. A joke, perhaps once, but the repetition has stripped this idea of the 51st state of comedy. Canadians have stopped laughing. And into this volatile atmosphere stepped Charles III. And the speech, written by Carney's government, but read with regal gravity by a monarch whose constitutional duty is to remain above politics, and yet the power of his presence did what no prime minister's article in a national newspaper could ever achieve, no soundbite could ever achieve. It dignified Canada's resistance to American bullying with centuries of continuity and symbolism. Charles spoke of democracy, pluralism, the rule of law, self-determination and freedom, values Canadians hold dear, and ones which the government is determined to protect. And then a thunderbolt dressed in courtesy: the world is more dangerous and uncertain a place than at any point since the Second World War. Make no mistake, it was the Crown drawing a line in the sand. And Trump was not named. He didn't need to be. His fingerprints were everywhere in the speech. When Charles praised Canada's efforts to rebuild, rearm and reinvest in its military, when he endorsed a new trade policy focused on reliable partners, when he declared that Canada is ready to lead, he was sounding the alarm against the destabilization of the post-war order. And it was diplomacy dressed in deference. But the audience, Canadian and American alike, heard the undertones. Trump, who admires the royal family even when he ridicules its countries, will have heard them too. Mark Carney, a man of central banking poise and unflappable temperament, emerges here as the quiet architect of this moment. The throne speech, though read by a sovereign, was his design. His government's version and vision of Canada is one rooted not in nostalgia but in strategic autonomy, and he's positioned Canada as both a partner to the United States and a bulwark against its worst instincts. And as Trump dangles annexation in one hand and tariffs in the other, Carney offers Charles as a constitutional corrective, reminding both Canadians and their neighbours that sovereignty is not for sale. And there's a lesson here in the enduring strength of soft power. The carriage procession, the mounties, the red tunics, the wreath laid at the tomb of the unknown soldier, these are not affectations, they are rituals of statehood. And in a week when Canada's very autonomy was questioned, they mattered. And Charles's final flourish, quoting the national anthem with the line, "The true North is indeed strong and free," was no idle sentiment. It was a strategic assertion of national dignity, delivered with just enough constitutional distance to be credible, but just enough conviction to be unmistakable. So what do we make of it? This wasn't merely a speech, it was a sovereign subtle swordplay, a diplomatic warning cloaked in velvet. King Charles reminded us that the monarchy though often dismissed as ceremonial, can be deployed as the quiet force for unity and national reassurance. Canada remains, for now, a constitutional monarchy, but in an age when republics falter and strong men loom large, the symbolism of the crown may prove more valuable than its sceptics imagine. In Ottawa this week, the message was clear. The king may not rule, but he can still defend.